Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. This is Gail of Gaia, and this is Free Range, where we graze on wild ideas and we have wonderful guests. And I do have a wonderful guest for you today. Before I start, I would like to let you know that my channel is in need of some help, and I don't usually like to do ads or ask for donations or any of that. But unfortunately, I really could use some help. So if you have it in your heart to be able to um, donate or help me out, I'm also have a son who I'm trying to get a um, tablet for, who's incarcerated at this point in time, and there's nothing in there to do. So, and it costs more than I can come up with. So, anyway, if you have the heart to do that, I would certainly appreciate it. There's links in the description here. And with that being said, let me bring on my wonderful guest, Janet Phelan. I don't know if I said her name right, but let me let me ask her about that. Okay.
Okay, it's still me.
Hi. Okay. Well, welcome. I'm happy to have you on. You have discovered some very fascinating information. And
Yes, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this, Gail. Thank you very
oh,
much for having me
when
on.
I when I saw that, I said, "Oh my God, I got to have this woman on," because a very important subject. And we're talking about water lines, and we have a copy of the blueprints behind our pictures here. Um,
Mm.
and I can do this and see if that. Sometimes that puts us to the side there. So there you can see this is a blueprint of a water line, right?
Correct. That's from Spokane, Washington. Correct.
Oh, okay. Um, well, I was going to start out by asking you, what is the concern here? Let's just open it up because people don't know what this is all about. So, um, why don't you explain what you discovered, and then I'd like you to explain. I have a couple other questions, but let's let people know what this is all about to begin with.
Sure. What I have uncovered is a second delivery system for a possible pandemic or possible, other kind of damaging input. And what I have uncovered has to do with water systems countrywide. What this blueprint shows is that we have two, not one, but two water lines running down Main Street America. And these lines are cross connected, meaning that um, what is in the second line, which is, we'll get into that in a minute because that's it's a real problem, the fact that there are two lines. What is in the second line is being withheld by remote control valves and can be used to flood into selective predetermined residences. So,
So now, do they do both lines have water in them
we
running?
we we don't know what the second line has because all of my contacts with the government about that second line have resulted in fear and disinformation coming from the government. First of all, if you make a regular blueprint request of like a city or a county, you'll get a blueprint with one line on it. And it took some doing for me to get the actual blueprints, like the one that you have there, which shows the two lines. So we think there's something very peculiar going on with that second line. Um, what what is in it? No way to tell. Um, the way the system is configured, they can run anything they want to through that second line. They can run vodka, cyanide, COVID,
Snake
LSD.
venom.
LSD, anything they want to. So, and the diabolical beauty of the system is its selectivity. So, for example, if somebody wants to attack you, Gail, they can simply do so through this system uh, by opening up that second line and flooding your house with the problematic whatever is in the second line. And they can leave all the other houses on the block untouched. And that's what we've got here. We've got a selective, uh, you know, kill mechanism. Yeah.
Oh, and it's not like they wouldn't use that, would it? Is it? I mean,
No,
that
they've gone to a lot of trouble to create this system, and it appears to be just about everywhere in the U.S. And the
yeah, I
question,
was amazed at how widespread. You said this is not only in most cities, it's also in other countries. Is that correct?
yes, um, there has been a massive effort to export this system. And I actually spent months going through WikiLeaks cable releases, trying to figure out how extensive this exportation of this system was. And at this point, it's not, it's difficult to say. I know, as a matter of fact, it's in Canada. It's in at least one city in Latin America. It's in Switzerland. Um, it's in post-invasion Iraq. It's in Tel Aviv. So, how extensive has the exportation been? We don't know. I suspect that most allies of the United States, that would be most NATO countries, have this.
Wow. Now, one of the things that I got one of your schematics in your
Oh,
article,
yeah.
and this, and maybe you could, where would it come in at?
Well, see, this is
Um,
showing an entirely different kind of system. This does not have to do with the double line system. This was an article that was explaining how gray water works and why gray water is not the same thing at all as this system. So this is simply a schematic, a picture that shows another kind of system.
oh, okay. So what we were talking about initially then is something that would come through the main water line. But if I understand you correctly, they could target an individual, or they could target an entire community or city.
Correct.
And they could say say something like arsenic in the water.
Mm.
And with these valves, open it up so it goes into your main line, and you would be drinking water with arsenic in it, or whatever they decided to put in it. I don't know if arsenic is a slow kill or a fast kill, but I think that they would probably. It's so nefarious. I just I don't see what other possible reason for having it would be.
Well, this is a big problem because what would the potential purposes of this be? I can't believe they're up to any good with this because the communications I've had back and forth between government agencies, which I've made available publicly, are replete with lies and with fears. For example, when I approached Los Angeles, California, their response was, "Oh, that's great. We'll give you blueprints, but we'll need a couple weeks because we need to create entirely new blueprints for you. We have to redact sensitive information." Now, unbeknownst to the city of Los Angeles, I'd already developed a backdoor, which I'll talk about in a minute, whereby I could get real blueprints. So I made a Public Records Act request for blueprints I already had. The blueprints I already had showed the double lines. The blueprints that were given to me through the Public Records Act request showed one line. So there's been a big effort to not cop to the fact that we have a double line system. Now, suppose, for example, they want to get people drunk. So we've got a second line. If that's like pure vodka, all they have to do is open up the remote control valves for the service line feeding into, a specific residence, and that person will, end up drunk because they'll be drinking vodka. So that's how this works. It's crazy. I mean, it's science fiction, except that all the documentation supports the fact that this is real and that this exists. So,
and they've been rather sneaky about providing you with the information. Is that correct?
well, they don't want to. I mentioned a few minutes ago that I developed a backdoor.
Yeah.
I
That's how you got it.
That I got the information through the back door. Now, for an example, when I was looking at Los Angeles water systems, my back door was like hanging around the street crews that were doing work on water and just, chatting them up and promising them, to go out with them later for a drink or something, just anything, just to get my hands on real blueprints. As soon as I got my hands on real blueprints, I would take pictures, and that's how I got those records. Those records were those records showing those two lines were the same from the same blocks that I had requested from the city, and had this correspondence saying, well, we'll give you blueprints in a few weeks, and lo and behold, they were, they showed one line, but the back door showed two lines. So, we've got a problem.
Wow. So now, if they did any willingly give you copies of the blueprints without having to go through the back door?
No Public Records Act requests anywhere resulted in
Wow.
For example, I was living in Oregon for a while and had extensive contact with the Medford Water Commission. Now, in Medford, Oregon, you can just go into the city water commission and copy the plats off. They make them publicly available for free. And the plats you'll copy off their copying machine, show one line. But the real blueprints, which I again got through the back door. So two lines. So, nowhere that I attempted to get the records through official means, through these records act requests, nowhere would they give me the real blueprints. Nowhere.
Now, I'm wondering about that. What could, other than for nefarious reasons, why else would they be so secretive about that?
Well, they passed a law, I think it was in 2001 and 2002, making it a federal crime for a government employee to disclose information about critical infrastructure. So apparently that one line is not, the one line they'll cop to is not critical infrastructure. The second line apparently is. So when I had meetings with the public information representative for the city of Medford, as well as for the chief engineer, and really the amount of crap they were throwing at me was quite daunting. So finally, I simply asked them. I said, is what you're saying being governed by this law? Are you afraid of being arrested? And I read them the law, at which point they stood up and said, this conversation is over, and they marched out of the room.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, okay, now that's the water commissioners, right?
Mhm.
So they're the
That-
ones that would be in charge. Those would be the ones that would probably, if we're going to do something nefarious, they would probably have the access to the remote ability to do that with the second line.
Right. That was
thing.
the public information officer and the chief engineer, the chief water engineer for the city. That's who that meeting was with. So
Wow. Yeah, that doesn't sound very positive. Now, there was something in one of your articles that I'd like to bring up, and in 2020, we had a situation where people were locked down in their homes, and many were reported sick, and water prices were, I mean, who would pay $1,000 for a 48 case of water?
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
My thinking is that the lockdowns during a purported pandemic are to ensure that the people get dosed. Because if they can't leave their house, they're going to be confined to house water. So that's what my thinking is on that.
wow. Hi, New York and Sandy. Glad you're here. This is a very interesting information that Janet has found about our water systems in this country. I'm happy at the place that I stay right now. We have well water, so I don't think they can
Well
do that
water,
as
well water is good. Yeah.
yeah. But it's not stupid rich water, rich people. I think it's very nefarious rich people that let's face it, we're on a depopulation agenda that is in full swing. You know, anything that they can throw at us, especially if they can do it covertly, they will. And so that's
Unfortunately, I'm afraid that's correct. It sounds crazy, it sounds conspiratorial, but the facts support that perception. Just today, I write for Zero Hedge, and just today I had an article published concerning the dosing of elderly people with antipsychotic medication. Now, antipsychotic medication has a black box. They have issued black box warnings, and these drugs are not to be given to people over 60. So I reported case after case in which an elderly and vulnerable person was indeed being given antipsychotic medication, even when that person had no history of psychosis. So these drugs, the FDA put out the black box warnings because it became obvious that these drugs were causing death in old people. So you've got a black box warning, you've got elderly people being dosed with these, and people are actually expiring.
yes.
So that article appeared today on Zero Hedge, and there is so
Oh,
much. There's so much in the literature, about the dangers of these medications. It's not a conspiracy theory. A science journal after science journal details that there is an elevated risk of death for an older person, but they give it to old people. So
They have, he's mentioning, New York's mentioning that, they already add fluoride, which is poison, but this system is more covertly targeting of anywhere from a community to an individual through this double line system, because they can remotely say, okay, it's like you're routing it to a particular house or routing it to a particular area.
right, right.
That's just
And
amazing.
this raises some questions. For example, during COVID, it was reported that certain races were more susceptible to death from COVID, like Black people and Hispanic people. Well, were they more susceptible to death, or were they, being given something extra? Hard to know.
How would we ever know?
How would we?
It'd be pretty hard to tell, because they can shut the valve off or, remotely
Exactly.
turn it off before you can get in there to actually see what they've done. Wow.
Right. Right. And if I
Um,
hadn't gone, the extra length of getting these actual blueprints from the back doors, we wouldn't even know that we had a problem, a potential problem.
exactly.
No.
Well, and then they can say it's related, or, it's whatever pandemic they're pushing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they do.
Right.
They push pandemics. And I'm sure they're really trying. We're really trying with this bird flu thing.
Oh, yeah,
And
they really are trying. Yeah.
yeah, hopefully people aren't going to fall for it again. But this is a very nefarious little setup that they've got that they could use very easily if they can get the people who are willing to take out their brothers and sisters.
Fortunately, we've got a real problem with morality. It's become very evident.
And I really think they target the elderly too, because they have they know a lot of what actually happened because of the length of their life and so on, and they have knowledge and wisdom from that lifetime. And now that every time they go through a reset, they try to change everything. They change history. They take. I mean, it's pretty horrific when you really start looking into it.
Well,
And
look at what happened, for example, in New York, where Governor Cuomo signed that order that sick COVID patients were to be put into nursing homes. Now, I located an interview that Governor Cuomo did with Jake Tapper just before Cuomo signed that order. And given statements he made during that interview, he knew very well what was going to happen in the nursing homes. And what happened was that everybody got COVID and people died. And
a
we
lot
had
of people died.
thousands of deaths. Right.
Now, technically, they could have, and we wouldn't have known it. They could have, those nursing homes that were sent where they, put the elderly patients. Not only may they have been in I mean, they could have been doing that right there, and we wouldn't really know it.
That's true. They could have been. They could have
And
been.
because it would take the elderly out faster.
That's right. That's right. It would. So another thing that might be of importance for your audience to know is that in the Patriot Act, which was passed after the events of 9/11 and also after the Anthrax attacks, which I find to be, a very interesting connection.
Right.
In the Patriot Act, there's this Section 817, which is the expansion of the biological weapons statute. And in that that change of law, again, it's Section 817 of the USA Patriot Act, so people can look it up. The U.S. gives itself legal immunity from violating its own biological weapons laws. So according to the law, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't deploy, you can't have, you can't, all these things are criminal regarding biological weapons, except if the U.S. does it, in which case, nothing. No legal culpability whatsoever, and that's written into law. And so, trying to get resolution here to this issue is like running into a brick wall with a truck. You just can't do it. So, yeah.
Wow. Somebody is asking about Canada, or she's in Vancouver, Canada. I distill or use zero water filter. Should not be difficult subject. I'm still researching for the best methods after 10 years. And then she also says about Canada has the best glacier water in the world, but with the geoengineering, who knows, I mean, they've been poisoning us, food, water, air.
I found the double line water system in Toronto, Canada. So, Canada, I'm assuming that it's not only in that city. I'm assuming that it's elsewhere in Canada. So,
wow, that could be a whole nother avenue that they haven't even really utilized very much, other than maybe they tested it and some people died and we didn't know anything about the connection. And yet it's something that they could still pull off covertly, and it would take a while to figure out what was really happening.
there are some concerns that, given the demographics of the deaths in New York City surrounding the pandemic, there are concerns that have been voiced from multiple sectors that these deaths could possibly have been attributed to poisoning, not to COVID per se.
And then didn't they cremated all the bodies, didn't they? Pretty
I'm
much.
not sure. I'm not sure what they did with the bodies in New York. I'm not sure.
Well, that would be another way of covering up, any way of trying to find out how the person's died. So that's really something else.
Somebody, Sandy, the double what? Can she say that again? Double line water system. We're talking about two lines.
Yeah.
One has water and the other quien sabe. Who knows?
She wanted you to explain that again. Maybe she came in after we had said a little bit about that already. And that's the whole gist behind this whole presentation, is there are two water lines. One is covertly there that most people don't know about. And she's also found that they can remotely open valves into individual homes, into targeted individuals or targeted communities.
Right.
So,
I actually got pictures of the valves. They're attached to one of the articles I wrote on this. I got pictures of the valves in the city yard in Santa Monica, and the valves had RFID addresses on them. So, I did a little bit of research on what kind of remote capabilities they have in terms of opening and shutting valves, and it's pretty frightening. Yeah.
well, it's very interesting that Trump had said, "Watch the water," and I always wondered. Well, I know that there are areas where they could, I mean, in Arizona, for example, they could just throw poisons in some of the canals. They're wide open, water's running right through them. But considering the fact that how many countries were there that were willing to take out a good portion of their population? Quite a few. It's pretty disturbing. Um, the other thing I'd like to bring up is you also um, have written a book, At the Breaking Point of History, How Decades of U.S. Duplicity Enabled the Pandemic. Would you like to explain that a little bit, what you mean by that?
Right. Well, the book is not specifically an anti-vax book. It really doesn't go into the dangers of vaccines. It goes into uh, a, a lot having to do with the US's policy surrounding biological weapons going back decades. Um, so, for example, I cited this Section 817 of the USA Patriot Act, and I got really interested in, how far the US had gone in terms of this sort of legal maneuver. So twice I went to the Biological Weapons Convention in Geneva, Switzerland. I registered as an NGO uh, because I wanted to be able to participate. And if you go as press, you basically have duct tape over your mouth and you don't get to engage the convention at all. So I made two presentations about this water system at the Biological Weapons Convention. And while I was there, I realized um, that the U.S. was mandated through a political mandate to report any changes in its biological weapons activity to the convention at large. And that includes changes in the law. And that, of course, includes Section 817. And what I learned was that the US never reported the changes in 817 to the convention at large. And I had an interview with one of the chief delegates from the US, a guy named Chris Park, who was very likable, one of these people that you just trust immediately, right? And he's telling me very earnestly, well, it was just an oversight. We forgot to report it. Really. So this major change, which in a sense could be seen as violating the stipulations of the Biological Weapons Convention at large. This major change was never reported to the convention. Well,
Wow. I think I just watched a part of the video. I didn't see the whole thing with Dr. David Martin, but him and Dr. Yeadon's pandemic victims in New York may have been dosed with poison. So that they're already coming out with wondering about that. So that may be related to this water system.
well, I'm glad you brought up Dr. Martin because I had a conversation with him about 2 years ago.
Mhm.
It was a private Zoom conversation, and he admitted to me that he knew about this double-line water system. He's not saying a word about it. He talks about patents and this and that and COVID, but he admitted to me in this conversation that he knew about this. So
I wonder why. That makes me wonder. Um,
I
Interesting.
think this is definitely uh, not the safest route to take, not the safest career route to take. So,
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, probably not. Probably, definitely not. Um, and we don't have any way of testing that second line either, really, do we? I mean, they don't. They would rather think you don't even know that it exists.
right.
Somebody was asking Have you seen this in Chicago? She's asking, how bad is Chicago?
Well, I haven't been to Chicago. I'm actually outside of the U.S. I had to leave very, very quickly from Oregon. Um, I began to have a lot of police misconduct directed at me, and so I chose to leave. So I've been out of the country now for over 10 years, and I'm not returning. So,
You
this
are returning, or you're
I
not
am
returning?
not returning. No,
Okay.
no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not going to return. So I didn't get to Chicago to do the research, but I'm assuming, that given that it's everywhere that I looked, I'm imagining it's in Chicago as well.
I would imagine in a city the size of Chicago, they have the same thing. Um, It
Yeah.
was the other thing that was talked about in that video that was kind of interesting was, and you mentioned the um, Anthrax, not Xanthrax, Anthrax
Right.
scare that went on. And they were saying that, interestingly enough, the DOD had ordered 300 million doses of the anti venom before the anthrax scares even happened. So, how do you explain that?
Mm.
'Cause everything's planned, is what it appears.
Mm.
Yeah. You mean
Well,
our
there
government
was,
doesn't love us?
sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said it. You mean our government doesn't love us?
There was a real rush to judgment about the anthrax attacks, and conveniently, the target of the FBI's investigation, Dr. Bruce Ivins, conveniently committed suicide before he could be arrested and brought to trial. So we'll never really know uh, who, who the perpetrator was. There are some interesting things about Dr. Ivins' uh, uh, suicide. He apparently committed suicide by taking an overdose of Tylenol, but no Tylenol wrappers or containers were found in his house. So that's red flag number one. Red flag number two is that he was rushed to the hospital and he was failing rapidly, but lo and behold, he began to rally, and the decision was made, and that's how it was reported. The decision was made to take him off of life support. So you have someone who is the target of an investigation, who conveniently tries to kill himself, who begins to improve in the hospital, and they make sure that he doesn't survive. So,
Yeah, the hospitals have become death camps from what it appears during the COVID thing. That remdesivir being given that was just unbelievable, and then intubation as well. And
intubation is
here
one.
they were being compensated with huge amounts of money for anywhere from a diagnosis to a death to an intubation to, you know,
Right. They were.
yeah,
The
and
more deaths, the more deaths, the more money you made.
yeah, I heard a figure that, now I don't know if this is just in America, and I think it is 276 million are dead. Do you?
How can that be? We have a population of what, 330 million?
Well, then it's 276 million around the world. It would have to be. Then it couldn't be. Yeah, that's right. I was thinking it was 330 million we had here in the United States, but
Right. Right.
no. um, anyway, so that is But that's a lot of people dead around the world, and here's other ways to just another way to do another nefarious thing is what it boils down to.
Well, I'm living in southern Mexico now, and people here got onto the reality of what happens in hospitals if you go in with a COVID diagnosis. They got onto it really quickly, and people preferred to stay at home and to take herbal medicine. And this is what I heard very, very widely, because you go to the hospital, you come out in a body bag. And it became pretty evident to people pretty quickly. Um, I was listening to the radio here, and this was after uh, the intubation scandal had really peaked in the US, and we knew that people who were being intubated for COVID would not survive. And the radio was reporting that this hospital had all these COVID patients on intubation. So, whatever was 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 being disclosed and uncovered in the U.S. certainly wasn't being honored here in Mexico. So,
Oh, interesting. Interesting. I know that Mexico has a tendency to be more herbal oriented in general, and they even fought against GMO corn and GMO, products and so on. And more power to them, because that's been part of the United States' big problem with unhealthy people.
yeah.
And we shall see how make America really play. Some of that I heard on that other video that I saw with Dr. David Martin, and I don't know who the interviewer. I wasn't familiar with him, but it's very concerning, to say the least. That wow, I
Well, I think
somebody's saying,
I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
no, go ahead. I just put up this question. It just says, I never caught COVID, and I worked in the schools with thousands of kids. Our art room teacher caught it and passed away, and he was young. Most of the people that passed away got the shot. That's what, and then being around people that got the shot, you were usually exposed to those spike proteins. And I don't know if it's okay to talk about this, because YouTube will take another channel down. I talked about that during when that was all going on, and I had about 10,000 subscribers at the time, and they took the whole channel. I got up one morning and my whole channel was gone. They don't even give you a file or anything. They just shut you down. And I can't tell you how many times I was in Facebook jail, and now they just got me at the end of the feed, so nobody sees what I post. It's really frustrating when you try to put some truth or information out there for people to be able to evaluate and have, an awareness and a knowledge base to work off of. And the media is doing everything in their power to keep that from happening, and taking people down left and right. And just like you, there was enough concern that you felt you had to leave the country in order to be safe.
I absolutely had to. And there's a lot of information out there about, what was happening in my life and so forth, and why I felt that I had to leave. But I'm glad I did. I'm glad I got out in time, because if I hadn't, I don't think I would ever have published this book, and I would never have, appeared on all the shows I was on and so forth. So.
Wow. New York is saying that almost all the teachers took the jab, and a lot of times they were, it was get jabbed or lose your job. That's just really, all those people need to be held accountable for doing that, because as more and more truth comes out, they wow. He says he's more afraid of the spike proteins than the COVID itself. The COVID, I mean, that just stands for what that it's just the flu. Only they weaponized the flu, and now they appears they've weaponized the water, or it has the potential to be weaponized. It's bad enough that they already have fluoride in it, because that's poisonous too. Um, and it's not doing anybody any good. That's for sure.
It's interesting to me here in Mexico. I don't believe the water is fluoridated. Actually, the water that comes out of the tap is undrinkable. It has to be boiled first. But they put fluoride in the salt. So you can't buy salt hardly at all anywhere that isn't fluoridated. So they found another way to get fluoride, on board. It's very concerning.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know that it was in salt.
Yeah, it sure is.
Who knows what else that is out there that they've been feeding us, and without our not knowing about it, and we're just consuming poisons. It's no wonder that Americans are as unhealthy as they are. We're getting hit harder, I think, than most other countries, and because they really want to take this country down, but they're not going to be able to. I think more and more people are getting to the point where they're willing to stand up. At least I hope so.
I certainly hope that's true.
Now, would a Berkey? A lot of people talk about I have a Berkey myself too that I run water through. I wonder. I don't know if that would remove a poison or not.
We don't know what they're using. We do not know what is in this at second line. And based on the not knowing, it is really impossible at this point to assess the efficacy of a water filtration system.
Yeah, and who knows? The bottled water may not be. Some people think, well, I'll just buy bottled water. Well, that may not be what you think it is either. Um,
Unfortunately, that appears to be true. So, it's a brave new world out there now.
Right. Well, based on your research and what you know as a result of that, is there anything that you want to tell the audience to do to protect themselves, or to, I mean, what do you think people should do?
I think the pandemic agenda is really just, I think it's on pause right now. I think we're going to be seeing, more and more of this in the near future. And I simply advise people to, store water, because you don't know if you're on the list or not. You don't, we've got a rough idea of who might be hit with this, but we can't be sure. So we're simply hoping that people will store water, because if they start locking people down again, and you can't leave your house, you darn well better have a good supply of water.
Are you familiar with the super mineral water? Have you ever heard?
No.
I had a guest named Fred Foster who has a product called Super Mineral Water that looks like this, if you can see it with this CGA virtual background. But anyway, it supposedly removes all toxic substances and dismantles them or whatever. If you're interested, I could send you some information on that. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. Please do.
Okay, I will.
I would be interested in knowing. There's also, of course, activated charcoal, which is supposed to absorb, if you accidentally get dosed with toxins, it is supposed to help clean out your system.
Look at this. People that did stand up. I lost my job for 8 months and no income for 8 months. That's horrible. Um, I'm glad you were able to survive, Sandy. That's tough. Um, and look at this. And then we have the school was trying to bribe me to take the jab. Oh, or you could get a free donut if you take it. I mean, it's unbelievable some of the methods that they use. Like it's a donut or your life. What do you want? It's terrible. Um, so are you talking about when you were talking about salt having the fluoride in? Were you talking about like Morton salt? Or
All the salt brands that they sell here at the supermarkets are fluoridated. So I don't believe I've seen Morton salt here. I've seen other brands.
oh, okay. So there's a one called real salt, and then there's sea salt. Are those any better or?
I think sea salt and Himalayan salt are are supposed to be purer forms of salt.
This is Sage is saying Celtic salt is good for you, and it is. I use that's the only salt I use.
Mhm.
So let's see what else we got. Yeah, that's true. Um, Budwhacker is saying the only way to make sure it's clean is distillation. Um, I think reverse osmosis does the same thing too, though, doesn't it? I think.
Again, I'm not sure if that would affect an unknown toxin because we don't know what it is, and they can switch it at any time. Yeah, so
I was just seeing if we have any more. Oh wow. Budwhacker says you can buy salt from the Amish. That's interesting. I didn't know they sold salt. I wouldn't mind getting my fruits and vegetables from them, though.
oh yeah,
Someone else said they stocked up on coconut water. That's a good
oh
water.
yeah,
I use
yeah.
I use that to make smoothies. It's high in potassium. There are very few things that are high in potassium. A lot of people have an imbalance of that in sodium. But anyway. Well, I guess I don't have any more questions in the audience. Is there anything else that you might like to say, or we could? Um,
Well, I just want to point to the reality, which is even if this new Secretary of Health and Human Services manages to inhibit bad vaccines, the new secretary has certainly been made aware of the water problem and has chosen not to address it. So, as long as this remains at play, we're all at risk. There are further questions as well, like what kind of democracy or republic or whatever you want, what kind of free society actually has a covert way to kill its own citizens? I mean, there's a bit of a disconnect there. And
yeah.
and I think that that we're living in a time of great deception, and it is my hope that the new administration will address these issues, but I'm not holding my breath.
Right. Yeah, I was a little concerned about apparently they're not changing the children's schedule of
Oh,
shots,
really? Really?
including, yeah, including and it's going to, if that isn't stopped, it includes the the most nefarious of them all at this point in time, shall I say, the COVID shot. So um, I hope I see more coming from that area than what I've seen so far.
I have RFK Jr.'s private email, and his book came out roughly around the same time mine did, and we arranged, we had email contact and we arranged a book swap. I think he did a very good job at exposing, the vaccine dangers, but he did not mention the water danger. Maybe he didn't know about it, but after receiving my book, he sure did. But he has chosen, to, well, we're
Not
still
address that
early.
issue.
We're still early on in this administration, and I really, really, can only hope that all of these problems get addressed. But I'm not,
Well,
like I said, not holding my breath.
when his book came out, how it came out the same time yours does? What year was
Roughly.
that?
Mine came out in 2021, and I think
Okay.
this came out.
So I remember I had asked, I wanted to interview him about his book, and he never got back to me. So I may not have been big enough for his taste, but I don't know. I was disappointed, obviously. But we shall see what happens with the whole situation in that regard. It won't take long for us to know based on what's done. Now, I know there's been a lot of firings in a lot of departments, and I
Yes,
think
there have been. Yes, there have been.
I think they're dismantling and gutting a lot of agencies, and that's really important. And then they're finding out about all the different fraud to an extent that's totally unbelievable.
Yeah, and I think it's a good thing, that people that all of this comes to light. But it all has to come to light, because you can't have certain things get addressed and then have these sneaky ways to kill people that remain unaddressed. So
exactly. I agree with you 100%. And it's just this is interesting too, and that the Amish children do not have autism like they do. I mean, it's getting really seriously bad. 1 in 36 children in America. I mean, that's just outrageous. So something has to be done in that regard, and it's very, as a podcaster, it's very difficult to even talk about that subject because they'll take you down, and it's like start all over again. So, but
well, I mentioned that I'm writing now for Zero Hedge, and I'm very, very happy with them.
cool.
I did my journalistic training at the University of Missouri at Columbia, which is one of the actually top 3 journalism schools in the US. And at one point in my career, I was writing for mainstream outlets. No longer. It's not going to happen any longer. So, it's not just the podcasts that are being affected. It's journalism in general.
Oh yeah, they tell you what you can write, right?
Well,
are they over edited or what? How does that work?
well, certain people are just being shuffled off to Buffalo. I mean, I have mainstream credits coming out the wazoo, but there's no way that any of these outlets will even respond to me anymore. It's like I am so persona non grata now. So
Wow, and you have such valuable information that they don't want people to have. That's what it really boils down to. But I'm hoping that these people are losing their power rather rapidly, and we're going to take our country back, and people are going to take their power back, and they need to stay in the light and stay in the truth and look for. It's you can kind of figure that the people that they take down, the people that they don't want to hear from, are the people you really need to listen to, because there's a reason why they don't want you to hear what we have to say about things when it comes to that, especially you, Janet. This is a very interesting area that could definitely be used very nefariously. And I applaud you for finding this information out and for putting it out there. And it's unfortunate that you had to move to be safe, but I understand that as well.
We do what we have to. Actually, my book that you showed on the screen is dedicated to a man named Shmuel Ziegelbaum, and that Shmuel escaped the Nazis. He was a Polish Jew, and they murdered his family, and he escaped and was trying to warn people about, what the Nazis were doing. And people didn't want to hear from him. He was a writer and an activist, and they didn't want to hear from him. And the book is dedicated to him.
That is just so disturbing. Well, they want most of us dead. Let's face it. That's the real truth behind it. So they don't want truth out there. But nothing can stop what's coming. And it's coming like a freight train because the truth is coming out. And once people know more, I just wish they would really take down the mass media. I mean, to go into the ABC, NBC, and those, and Fox, and those, and say, "You're done. These people are replacing you. These channels are going to be truthful now." That would be nice.
Well, I'm very gratified that we have such a vibrant, independent media, of which you are definitely a part, Gail. So it is programs like this that are our hope for the future, because it is programs like this that that allow us to get the truth out. And so
Thank you, Janet.
We're very honored to be a part of this effort, aren't we, Gail?
Yes, we are, very much so. Light warriors, warriors for sure, fearless, and keep moving forward, because we're going to win. We're winning already. And there are casualties, of course, but keep moving forward, keep standing in the light, and let's keep the truth coming forward. What else can we do? That's the best thing we can do for everybody, as best we can. So that being said, I think I'll call this a wrap, and I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing this information with my audience. And thank you for doing the work that you've done, because nobody else has done anything like it, which makes it very unique.
Thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me on.
Oh, you're more than welcome. And thank you. Keep up the wonderful work. Maybe we'll do another one at some point in time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bless.
Bye, everyone. Stay in the light. Okay.
We have found our way. It's a brand new day, and we'll be making history. Are you with me? Won't you stay? We have come so far. This is who we are, and like the rising sun, we have just begun to play our part. This is the time we form the chorus. Lift your voice for those before us. We can rely on one another. Feel the pride, let's show our colors. We are heroes and dreamers. We are restless believers. Stronger than ever, never say never. Don't look back now, don't look back now. Rise up, stand with each other. We are sisters and brothers. destiny awaits. We are all the actors in the stories we create. Hope will be our guide. We'll no longer hide. When we roll like thunder, feel the wonder from inside. This is the time we form the chorus. Lift your voice for those before us. We can rely on